Computer. There we go. Okay. So 25 years though. Is it a well, what exactly do you do? What's the age of your kid, your students?
Preschool students 3 and 4 years old, and after school students, they're school age, anywhere from 6 to 12 years old.
Having a hard time hearing you. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you okay.
Okay. All right. You sound a little muffled, but I'll keep trying. Okay. Um, let me see. Can you hear her okay, Bill?
I can.
Yeah, okay. Sounds muffled to me, but all right. So, how were the last couple of years for you going through the pandemic? Was it kind of tough or a roller coaster or best year ever, kind of flat? How are things for you?
Well, we went through the pandemic and we had to shut down March 2020 until August 20 for the pandemic, and we had several staff members that got COVID and sick, and we had several kids that in and out. So we decided to shut down for a period of time
Okay.
until everything got better.
Okay, makes sense. Were you able to take advantage of PPP funding?
We did not.
You
We
did
did
not. Okay.
not file.
Okay. And what size employer are you? How many employees do you have?
We have 9 employees.
Okay.
I think
Has
it's
that number been
9. Yes,
pretty
9.
consistent last couple of years?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
We have some people that left the pandemic, and then we picked up several new people. So yes, it has been consistent, and most of our staff is still with us from the beginning to now.
Okay. And do you know much about this ERC, Pam?
Well, yes, I've heard about it, but I tried a company called what is it? Innovation Refund
Yeah.
Eric Loans. But I didn't like the terminology that they used with me with their uh, application that they sent me back, and it was like, if we go to court, everything is on you, 100%. Travis Watkins law firm. We go with Oklahoma City. I would have to travel there, and I just didn't do anything because I said I don't like the way that sounds, and I had somebody else legally to look at it, and it didn't sound right to me, so I didn't mess with it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen with you and tell you what we're all about and see if we can help you. If I
Okay,
do, if I do this correctly, do you see my dog Hooper in front of you?
I do.
Okay, great. Okay. That's my backyard, but there's like 18 inches of snow now up here, but that's my backyard. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And now do you see Jorns and Associates on your screen?
Mm-hmm. I
Okay, great.
do.
So that is our CPA firm. We went from 2.5 employees, Pam, a year and a half ago. Today we have
Mhm.
420 employees. We just opened a
Wow.
20,000 square foot facility in Wichita, Kansas, 5,000 square foot
Mhm.
building up in Rochester, New York, brand new office in Roanoke,
Mhm.
Virginia a few Mondays ago, new one in Mississippi,
Wow.
Ohio, Montana, Wyoming, Southern California, New York. I think I missed a couple, but explosive growth. Um, we help more people with ERC than any other firm in the country. We just passed 12,000 clients getting 5 billion in these refunds. We didn't invent it, but we were just one of the first 3 firms in the country to learn this process. So I'll kind of get
Okay.
through that.
Okay.
But let me give you a quick history of the program. If we go back in time to March of 2020, when the pandemic first hit, we went from an
Right.
absolutely booming economy to a total shutdown overnight because of the pandemic, right? They said 2 weeks to flatten the
Mhm.
curve. It was obviously going to be a little longer than that. So Congress passed the CARES Act in March of 2020 as this giant stimulus attempt with several strategies in that one bill to hopefully save the U.S. economy. Several things from that bill you might remember, like the word essential workers and essential businesses, that came out of the
Yes.
CARES Act. So if the place somebody was working was shut down for a while, you could extend your unemployment benefits. That was part of the CARES Act. Or all the employees getting a check for like $1,200 in the mail that month called stimulus money. That came out of the CARES Act. PPP loans came out of the CARES Act, which sounded too good to be true to a lot of people, but it was a significant loan that supposedly you wouldn't have to pay back. A lot of people were apprehensive about it, but an awful lot of companies did, employers did get that money. And as long as they could demonstrate that used it for their business, they actually were forgiven those debts. They totally drained PPP round one, refilled it, and totally drained PPP round two also. All of those parts of the CARES Act worked just like they thought it was going to. But ironically, the largest part of that bill is what we're talking about today, the ERC, the Employee Retention Credit. They had literally set aside 1.2 trillion with a T dollars in the US Treasury and earmarked it for the American employers. But you fast forward almost a year later, stimulus money was out there, unemployment was extended, they did another round of stimulus, 2 rounds of PPP. That all worked well, but this ERC bucket still had $1.2 trillion in it a year later. Needle had not even budged. By their own admission, they had made a massive miscalculation, and unintentionally, of course, I made it impossible to qualify. You basically had to be down 50% in revenue and not have taken PPP money. And that just didn't happen. They totally underestimated how resilient Americans are, especially employers and business owners and entrepreneurs. Very few were down enough to qualify, but the ones that were hurting, of course, they took PPP money. So this money sat there. But the part is that once they are earmarked funds in the Treasury, you can't take it back or change your mind or decide to give it to infrastructure. This money can only go to the intended recipient, which is the American employer. So there's no taking it back. So they have to give this money away. So what happened is later that year, they passed 2 other bills, one called the Rescue Plan. At the end of the year, the Appropriations Bill. And between those, literally 200 more pages of guidance that changed this whole program, ways to qualify, the employee counts, especially redefining time periods. So this whole program is night and day different from what it was at first. And ironically, a lot of CPAs just don't understand the new guidance because it is complicated. But that's the quick history of why we're having this conversation today. But there's 2 parts of this, Pam. There's a how much part and a how to part. I'm going to do a quick how much exercise for the Academy of Learning, and in 2 slides to show you how we qualify it. But the first time period in play here is from March 13th of 2020 through December 31st of that year. It's about a 41-week span where you as an employer are entitled to a 50% reimbursement of payroll that went out during that time, but it does cap out at $5,000 per employee. So simple math, you have 9 employees times 5,000, that's $45,000. But this is not a PPP round 3. It's not actually a loan at all. So there's no forgiveness, no paying it back. Instead, what Jones is going to do is they're going to amend your 941 quarterlies and reissue a 941X form on your behalf. But this time on line 18, they're going to add the ERC credit. That's going to trigger an overpayment in the government's mind, which will result in a series of checks made out to the Academy of Learning. So it's an overpayment refund. And it's no different really than if an individual got an income tax refund in the spring, a return, that means too much came out of his or her check all year. So they overpaid, so they get a refund in the spring. And you can't tax it because it's an overpayment refund. This is literally the same thing, but at the employer level. So it's an overpayment refund of $45,000. You follow me so far on that math, Pam? So far, so good? Pam, you still with me?
I'm still with you.
Okay, just make sure. Okay. A lot of people misunderstand the word credit, thinking it means a credit toward a future filing period. It's not, because we're amending a previous period of time. So this literally is a series of checks that will be coming hopefully by mid to late summer to the Academy of Learning. But that was 2020. On December 27th, they passed that appropriations bill, and that's what changed everything for 21. And one of the biggest differences is they redefined the word time period or filing period to mean a calendar quarter for 21 instead of a calendar year like years past. So our next time period in play here is literally January 1st to March 31st, quarter 1, to file all by itself. But then April, May, and June, Q2, we can file again, and then Q3, then Q4. So there's 4 separate quarters. Now they passed that bill at 1:45 on December 27th, and sometime within that last hour, they ended up taking back Q4. But that still left us 3 quarters to file, and they raised that reimbursement to 70% of payroll, and that amount to $7,000 per employee per quarter. So if we now, the next period in play would be January 1st to March 31st. So 7,000 times 9 would be about $63,000 for Q1, $63,000 for Q2, and $63,000 for Q3. So about $189,000, depending on the exact payroll numbers, of course. But we add that to $45,000, the net of 2020. It looks like we can get you about $234,000 in a series of IRS refund checks made out to the Academy of Learning. So you follow me on the numbers so far, Pam?
I do.
Okay. Now, a little disclaimer, I'm not guaranteeing that's your exact number. We can't get precise on a 15-minute Zoom, obviously. The 941s will tell the story, but I've done way over 1,000 of these, Pam. I'm very close to my math, okay? But again, just as an estimate. But at the beginning, I asked you what you knew about ERC. You had been down the road a little bit. You knew a little bit about it. I talked to 15 people a day. Most people don't seem to know much about it, but if they do, they seem to know just enough to assume they don't qualify, or have even had a CPA tell them they don't qualify. And this right here is the reasons we hear, like, well, we were deemed essential, so we never had to shut down. I hear that a lot. Or what's that?
Okay.
Okay. Or so, people think they're not enough down in revenue, or 21 was their best year ever, or they did take PPP money, so they can't take both. Now, all of those things would have disqualified 99% of employers on the original guidelines, which is why there was still $1 trillion in that bucket a year later. So, but the good news is that George uses the hundreds of pages of new guidance to qualify you by demonstrating how the pandemic affected you, specifically your school, your industry, but regardless of the strict guidelines, that used to be the only way to qualify. Now, a great way to kind of conceptualize this, Pam, is I like to talk about my sister's restaurant here in New Hampshire. They were actually the best 2 years of her restaurant career, but she had to make some adjustments. When New Hampshire allowed restaurants to open at first, she had to make some adjustments because there was a restriction to 50% capacity in the dining room because everybody had to spread out more, like skip every other table, right? But what Cindy literally did, she put tables and chairs outside in the parking lot right on Route 108 and called it patio seating. And for whatever reason, that was a hit. People flocked to it. She ended up making more money doing that than she would have with a full dining room. Yet by definition, that is called a nominal change within a sector. And that's a qualifying event for ERC. If that wasn't enough, on the other side, she added a curbside pickup, takeout delivery business, made a fortune doing that. So she was way up in revenue, actually already had done 2 rounds of PPP, but we still got her $240,000 in ERC because we could demonstrate she had to make adjustments. Does that make sense? Follow me so far? Okay. And those might seem like very obvious examples, like moving outdoor seating and delivering food, but there's other factors that you might not think of. Like if you look at this screen, there's actually a couple hundred pages of ways to qualify companies compliantly. Like even my sister's restaurant, before we knew COVID was an aerosol, we weren't sure if you could catch it by touching things. So like a lot of restaurants, she had disposable menus, which means use it once has to go in the trash. The fact that that's a new printing expense that didn't exist pre-pandemic became part of her equation. Or the fact that red meat went up $2 a pound in 2020 became part of her equation. She had to reprice all the burgers in the tavern. Or if DoorDash delivered the ticket, they were taking 25% of the whole ticket, or 30%, depends on the zip code. So yes, she had the best couple of years of her career, but obviously she had to make adjustments. But really, the pandemic affected just about all of us. I've done hundreds and hundreds of community colleges and charter schools. I've done urgent care centers and dental practices, construction companies, retail, manufacturing, warehouse. Even with your school, think about how many cases of masks and gallons of sanitizer you must have gone through, testing supplies, or if you have to make up for somebody out sick at work, or plexiglass dividers in between workstations, or sanitation stations, or air filtration systems, even disinfecting your offices there at the school. That takes productive minutes out of your normal work week. Our CPAs and analysts can add up all of those factors. If the sum total equals, by definition, a nominal change within a sector, that's how we get you qualified. So you follow me on most of this so far, Pam? Okay. Now, please understand, we do not live in the gray area, or we don't try to find a loophole. Quite the opposite. Jones is painstakingly compliant. We actually take longer than any of the other firms. We got to make sure above all else that you're compliant and you never ever have to give this money back. That's what we're most concerned with. There's an awful lot of other ERC firms that have popped up, but an awful lot of them have also shut down in the last 4 months because they were just filing for people, but not doing the qualification report. The report we're going to write for you, Pam, is at least 80 pages long on average. It can be up to 1,200 pages long. But we literally cite every chapter and verse in local, state, regional, national COVID restriction ordinance, breakdown expenses and protocols. So we give you a thick report, and it's audit ready material. So if you ever were audited, we actually don't expect a single company to be audited because we used to send a report in with a 941X. The IRS finally said that's too much information. You guys are airtight. If we ever need it, we'll let you know. But we have a CPA sign every 941X that goes out. So we're the only firm we know of that does that. So all the liability for this falls on the CPA. I'll cover that in a minute as well. On the screen here is a gentleman in Ohio who has 2 car dealerships, just to show you a real case, and he allowed us to show this. But the top one is a Kia dealership with 60 employees. The bottom one's a Hyundai with 70 employees. And this is just as Q2 checks last year. This code F941REF, that's an amended 941 quarterly, which is ERC. An overpayment triggers a refund check made out to the dealership. And this is the time period, April, May, and June for Hyundai, April, May, and June for Kia. He got 3 of those for each dealership. Plus he got the 2020 money. Seth was at $3.4 million. And his accountant had already told him he didn't qualify. Seth had actually heard about ERC, asked his accountant to look into it. That accountant called back within minutes and said, you can't, you won't qualify, Seth. You made way too much money last year. See what happened when he engaged with Jones, we discovered that he couldn't get any new cars for like 2 years, right? So I guess the computers and the chips were all in containers at sea. But his pivot was selling pre-owned vehicles, and it worked out well. He was actually up 40% in revenue. Yet by definition, that is a nominal change within the sector. Okay? Not even nominal, it's huge. But between that, disinfecting the vehicles, disinfecting the showrooms, we easily qualified them. But that is why you need a specialist that does nothing but ERC. Your dentist does your cleanings, an oral surgeon does your root canals. That's what Jones is. We don't do year-end preparing. We don't do payroll services. The only thing we do is ERC. Now, but to be transparent, Pam, we did not invent this. We were just one of the first 3 firms in the country to learn the process, but now we've helped more than any other firm in the country. Over 12,000 clients now and $5 billion of refunds. There's actually 3 reputable companies in the country doing this: Alliance, Regency, and Jones and Associates. The 3 of us, they're all on par. We're head and shoulders above them a little bit, but they also do the qualification reports. Most of the other firms are just filing for people, but not doing the qualification report. So if you ever get audited, you could owe that money back and owe a lot of penalties and interest and or worse. With us, I'm going to explain that is all on us, not on you. So I can't guarantee they're going to qualify your academy. I'd be shocked if they haven't. I haven't had a school of your size not get qualified, but we still have to go through the process. But if Jones, they're not going to risk their firm or your school if you don't qualify compliantly, they're not going to. But assuming that they say, yes, we can help you, Pam, they guarantee that our numbers will match the checks that come in this summer from the IRS. And this separates us from every other firm. We're opening up brick and mortar stores as fast as we can from coast to coast. We offer a 100% full audit guarantee in writing. So if you were ever audited, all the liability falls on Jones for how they, all their compliance, how they qualified you, all their math. They stand by this right through 2030, through the life of this project. A lot of these other firms won't even be around a year from now, but we're here for the duration of it. So the way Jones operates, Pam, is called a contingency fee, and their fee is 15% or whatever they can get for you in a refund. Actually, if you walked into the new Roanoke, Virginia store, for example, they would actually charge you 20%. Or if you found Jordan's online, hired your CPAs, they actually charge 20%. But because you came through Angela here, Aflac Nation bringing hundreds of clients a week to Jordan's, because of that massive volume, their clients enjoy a reduced filing fee of 15%, which is the lowest among specialty firms. Most of our competition is charging 20, 25, or 30%. And with Jordan's, you don't pay that until after you've actually received your checks. Our largest competitor is Credible, but they charge half of their fee in advance. With us, if you don't get a refund, you won't end up paying a dime. We do collect a $2,600 deposit at engagement to get our CPA started on a case, but even that's refundable. If at any point in this process, either of our CPA teams comes back, so I'm sorry, Pam, we can't compliantly qualify you, they're going to refund that within 24 hours. But assuming that we can get you hopefully $234,000 or more, mid to late summer, then you'll be invoiced from Jordan's after you receive your checks. But the invoice will even have a $2,600 credit on it because it's not even a fee, it's part of the 15%. So there's zero financial risk to engage with Jordan's to find out if there is $230,000 in the treasury that rightfully should be at your school. If you don't qualify, at least you'll know and you get your deposit back, but at least you're not going to, also leave money there that should be yours. And we guarantee there's no human error. We do every single case within the lines of our IRS approved software. So any questions so far, Pam?
No.
Okay. The only thing, before I show you the next steps in the timeline, I just want to add one that's called a consideration. Honestly, it has nothing to do with ERC or Jordan's. It has to do with Angela, because she's the reason we're meeting today. I'm just going to make a suggestion is what it is, that if we can exceed your expectation, get you over $250,000 this summer, it might be an awesome idea to give your teachers or employees there $5 or $10 a week for some really cool benefits that she offers, like dental, vision, life insurance. That was a plug for you, Angela. That really has nothing to do with this, Pam. That was just a plug for Aflac agents bringing it. But it is a good idea. We're all trying to keep our good employees, right? I will say that Seth, that car dealer I showed you, he gave his employees $10 a week for life insurance, and that went over very, very well, but that is certainly not a requirement. That was really a plug for her business, okay? But from here, we're going to send you an engagement email, Pam, so sign their agreement and pay their deposit, and you'll be engaged with the firm at that point. We're going to assign a specialist to you and let you know what information we're going to need to qualify you. Basically, quarters 2, 3, and 4 of 20, and 1, 2, and 3 of 21 to payroll the 941s. And this process, without apology, we don't do this fast. That's not our main goal. Compliance is our main goal, to make sure you never have to give this back. It could take 2 or 3 months. And if we come back and say, it looks like we qualify you, then we send it to the IRS, and then you just wait for a check. Could be 7 weeks. It could be 7 months. It's usually somewhere in the middle. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. They kind of work at their own timeline. You'll get your notification from that before that from the IRS that you qualified and how much, but the check probably be mid to late summer before you actually receive your checks, but you will. And then you receive your invoice from Jordan's. This is what the email will look like. It'll say Dear Pam, obviously, but a place to sign the agreement, a place to pay the deposit. And that's pretty much it. Any other questions for me, Pam?
I have my husband here that's also listening. He might have.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry, you sounded muffled. I didn't hear what you said, Pam.
She said her husband's there with her and he might have some questions. Hang on.
Great. Okay, got you. Okay. So I think you guys can hear her. For some reason, mine's muffled. I'm not sure why, but you can help me reiterate to me. That'd be great. Did she go to get him, I think? Not sure. Okay.
Yeah. No, I had lost connection.
Yep. You still there, Pam?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay. Is your husband there? Had a question or something?
He said he didn't have any.
Okay. Ma'am, what is the actual name of the school? Is it Academy of Learning? Is there an Inc. or LLC or DBA or anything?
It's Academy of Learning Incorporated.
Okay, Academy of Learning Inc. Okay. And what is the best? I have your email, same one we use for the invite. And what's the best phone number for you, Pam? If Joanne's had a question for you.
My best number is 870-692-3014.
Angela, could you get that for me? It sounds muffled. I don't want to miss the number. Can you make sure we get that correctly?
It's 870-692-3014.
Excellent. I'm not sure I can hear you loud and clear, but it was muffled, but I appreciate that. All right. And we'll get that email out. If you have any questions, certainly get a hold of us. I do want to ask one, just mention one thing, Pam. Thank you for your time, but part of the mission of our agency, we're also trying to help as many nonprofits as possible at the same time. If you happen to come across or know of any nonprofits, I don't care how small they are, we're really trying to get this money in our communities as well. We've helped hundreds and hundreds of churches and feeding shelters and dog rescues. So if you know any,
I'm a nonprofit organization.
you are, okay, fantastic, okay. But again, if you know others as well, just, pass that information along to Angela as well. We're just trying to help as many as possible. It's really the heartbeat of our mission here. So, well, Pam, I thank you very, very much for your time today. And Angela, thanks for introducing us. I appreciate that. And hopefully we can help you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful day, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, you too.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Okay. I'm going to.
Send that recording to me.
Yes, I will. Yeah. Let me,
Okay,
I'm gonna end this and make sure I save the recording. So I can give you a call shortly. Okay.
that's good. I'll go over it several times. I'll be in touch with you here in a couple of days. Lincoln's trying to get me to do some for him.
Okay.
And
Angela, you
see-
still on? Still on, Angela? She might have left too. All right.
Yeah.
I
I'm
have,
sorry.
I have another one in 2 minutes, but I want to make sure I get this recording, but I have to wait till it circles. So let me jump off, get this recording, get this to you. And
Good.
excellent. Welcome to the team. So I'll give you a call. We'll follow up, right?
Okay, thanks.
All right. I'm good.